Hi, everyone. Welcome to First and North. My name is Lou Canellis at Fox 32 in Chicago. Joining me on this week's edition of First and North. From Fox in Detroit, there she is, Jennifer Hammond. From Fox Milwaukee, long time no see, Brandon Cruz is back. And from Fox Minneapolis, our resident smart aleck, Ahmad Hicks, who we love so much. All right, let's get it underway. We are just under 100 days away from the kickoff to the NFL season. Boy, I'll tell you what, earth-shattering news Monday out of Detroit. Lions center Frank Ragnow announces his retirement. Jen, now looking back, the Lions, tell me they had to know about this going into the NFL draft, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to tell you that you called it, what did you call it, earth-shattering news? I'd say that it's probably something that's been expected for a couple of seasons, and it is just an unfortunate truth of what the reality of this sport is, especially with Frank Ragnow and his injuries. I don't think anybody in Allen Park at the Meyer Performance Center was blindsided by any stretch of the imagination. People that I spoke to on Monday after the news broke said that it was something that really they kind of anticipated could have been happening, but they wanted to give Frank as much time as possible to think it through and to just make sure that he was sound with his decision. With that said, Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell went about the business of drafting 2 interior linemen, and Tate Ratledge is a guy that, who knows, could be the starting center of the future in Detroit sooner than later. He worked in minicamps and in OTAs at that position, and also they've still got Graham Glasgow, who's a 10-year vet who's played that position for Detroit. So as much as it is kind of a blow to the offensive line, because Frank is a 4-time All-Pro, he's an incredible talent, he's a great leader, I don't think it's anything that they can't get over.
All right, before we get into Ratledge, I want you to tell me, and for our audience, why did Ragnow make this decision, number one, and number two, how big of a loss is this?
Yeah, you know, he really is the heart and soul of this organization. He was one of the few holdovers from the previous coaching staff. He's been here for 7 years. And it's funny because when somebody said, oh, 7-year career, it feels to me like it's always been Frank Ragnow at center, number 77 in the Honolulu Blue and Silver, in the middle of that offensive line. He's a great leader. He's a really steady guy, and he has been such a warrior. I mean, they talk about grit in Detroit, and I know that it sounds a little cliche, but he's a guy that has played through some catastrophic and unimaginable injuries. It went from turf toe to a torn plantar fascia to an ankle. He had a knee. Last season, he tore or partially tore his pec in a game against Arizona, finished that game with the partially torn pec, and then went on to only miss one other game after that. He has been a constant of steady, reliable professionalism, and this guy has the heart of a champion. I'm just sorry that he never got to a Super Bowl because, my God, he really deserves it. He's really the epitome of the Detroit Lions and what this line, what this organization, what this culture is all about. And I know that Dan Campbell is going to miss this guy as much as he is his talents on the field. One other point, though, that shouldn't be lost in all of this is the fact that Hank Fraley did stay. He was offered the offensive coordinator position in Seattle this offseason. He would have been another, I think, the 10th coach that the Lions could have feasibly lost. I mean, they lost both coordinators. And if they would have lost Hank Fraley amid this whole Frank Ragnow departure, I think things would be a lot more grim, gloomy, dim, however you want to paint it. But I do think that with Hank Fraley there and with a lot of veterans still, Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, Graham Glasgow, they're going to still be just okay.
All right, let me just ask you quickly about the second rounder, Tate Ratledge. I'll say this, man, his haircut just yells offensive lineman.
Yeah, right.
Played right guard at Georgia. Can he play center?
Yeah, he has played center at points over his career, so he said he feels comfortable there. Certainly there's a lot more that he's going to have to learn as far as not only a new team, but a new position on a new team. And the NFL, let's face it, it's a whole lot bigger and different than even the SEC in Georgia. But the fact that he played at a big-time program like that against that kind of talent, I think is going to give him a leg up. He's 6'6", he's a big, beefy guy. He also has been a guy that really is kind of nasty and gritty, so he's exactly the culture fit and the type of player that the Lions want on that offensive line. And with the coaching staff that they have around him and the veteran leadership that they still have in that room between Decker and Sewell, I think they're going to be just fine. Growing pains can be expected, certainly. Jared Goff may have to do some things a little bit differently. He isn't the most mobile of quarterbacks, and when he's under pressure, his completion numbers and his passer rating is a lot different story. But I do think that Tate Ratledge is exactly the guy that they were expecting to be perhaps the center of the future when they drafted him. They moved up to draft him in the second round.
All right, I want to go to Green Bay. Welcome back, Brandon Cox. I mean, good to see you. It's been a while. I want to stick with the offensive line. Packers still without Elgin Jenkins. Does this worry you?
No, right now he's just trying to get everything in order financially, because with a move to center because of Aaron Banks coming onto this roster from San Francisco, that means his chances for more money down the line aren't as good as they were when he was playing a different position on the line. So for that switch, he is looking to secure the money that he would have earned most likely if he had stayed outside of the center position. So right now it's just about trying to protect himself financially and to make sure that he does not get taken advantage of for moving over to center at this point to help this offensive line. At that point, though, you have to wonder, once they get into training camp, if this continues to be an issue, that's where there might be concern. But at this point in time, they're just worried about, meaning Elgton Jenkins' camp, is just worried about making sure he is protected financially and is okay to go forward before he participates in any of the organized team activities or mandatory minicamp. All of that is yet to be seen. But right now, he's not at the OTAs because he's trying to find the deal that he feels suits him and that he has earned.
All right, Brandon, stand by. Don't go too far. I want to get it back to you in a second, but I do want to bring in Ahmad. We haven't heard from Ahmad yet. First, all eyes on J.J. McCarthy right now in Minnesota. Vikings continuing OTAs, and look who showed up.
Definitely important, to gain a little bit of sight of what the new year is coming to look like, to build that connection with my teammates and especially with my quarterback. So the whole field is always a great vibe. So when they asked for me to be here and asked for me to be a part of it, it was a no-brainer.
All right, Ahmad, surprised he's there?
Yeah, actually, kind of. I believe I was on this show last week, and I said we probably wouldn't see Justin Jefferson, and then there he was trotting out there on the Vikings Video Entertainment Network, where we saw, him out there. And, I asked him that question yesterday that we just heard his response to, and he was basically just talking about wanting to be that leader, that guy that the young people in that locker room can look up to. And when you have one of your highest paid players in the National Football League at OTAs, taking part, going through drills, going through team activities, it kind of sends a message to the rest of the squad like, hey, they mean business this year, and the Vikings believe they have something to play for. And I think it starts with having number 18 at OTAs along with number 9 and J.J. McCarthy. But, Lou, I want to ask you a question. You didn't send out a memo that we were going to be sitting on couches and laid back and stuff. Give me a heads up. I can find somewhere else next time, man. Dang.
Hey, man, I'm relaxed. It's the off season, all right? Let me enjoy myself. Speaking of enjoyment, I'm also happy that Brandon's back. We haven't had him on in a while, and I want to go back to him. Big B, Jordan Love, year 3 as a starter, met the media last week. He shared his expectations for the season in Green Bay.
I think you talk about Super Bowl, that's the goal for us. We talked about that last year, and that's the same message this year, is we're trying to win a Super Bowl. So I'm definitely trying to be that guy to be able to take this team and lead them to that. I think when you talk about Aaron and what he did in his 3rd year, I never try and compare because, that's so hard to do. There's so many different situations that go on, but at the end of the day, like you said, I've been here going on year 6, going on my 3rd year playing, so, everything's right there in front of us and for this team.
All right, year 3 under Rodgers, Packers won the Super Bowl. And when you compare their numbers the first 2 seasons, Brandon, they're similar. You betting the house on the Packers to win the Super Bowl this year? What do you think?
I mean, I think like anybody in the North pretty much has a chance, and I think with the experience that he's had, they do have a shot. It's just a matter now, like always, is he going to be healthy? I mean, last year his numbers improved a little, especially down the stretch compared to 2023. And he had missed basically 3 games because of a knee injury, and that also prohibited him from playing well early on in the season. So if he can maintain his health and be comfortable out there each and every week, I think this Packers team does have a shot. In fact, they've improved their wide receiver room. room with Matthew Golden. Yes, he's a rookie, and he's showing a lot right now at the OTAs, as much as you can in that scene, but he still has a lot to learn, and it also brings more competition to that wide receiver room. And then you add Aaron Banks on the offensive line. They are solid everywhere around on that side of the ball. So if he can stay healthy and continue to not make mistakes, this team has a shot under Jordan Love to reach that Super Bowl.
All right, here in Chicago, guys, Caleb Williams, I don't know if you saw his quotes, but he addressed the earlier quotes he made for that book and his father's quotes, a book that's still yet to be released.
I wanted to come here and be the guy and be a part and be a reason on why Chicago Bears turn this thing around. So that last thing that was said and all of that, I think was the most important thing, is that I wanted to be here. But the main goal and the main objective of being here is to turn around. That's why I was selected number one. And so, that's what we're here to do. That's what they brought, me here to do. That's what they brought all these guys here to do. Joe, DJ, all these different guys. And that's why they brought Ben here.
I'll tell you what, the kid's 23 years old, and he's incredibly mature, man. He took it head on, right? Opened the press conference with a 4-minute statement, didn't deny his initial skepticism towards the Bears and their track record for developing franchise quarterbacks. We know how poor it's been in this town. He was open about the way he and his family actually mulled over ideas about trying to get drafted elsewhere, sitting out, not wanting to play in Chicago. And he also talked openly about how he wanted to play with Kevin O'Connell after meeting him at the NFL Draft Combine. But he also said that after he came here to Chicago, spent some time with the organization, that he had this desire to come to Chicago, and he wanted to be part of something here that's different, that's special under Ben Johnson. He wants to be a reason why the Bears are going to turn this thing around, and he wants to be here to show that this isn't the town where quarterbacks come to die. All right, we're going to take a time out here on First and North. Coming up after a break, we're going to continue our discussion. Vikings lock up their general manager to a multi-year deal. Dan Campbell addresses all the doubters out there for this season. All that and more when we come back here on First and North.
Major League Baseball on Fox.
What I'm doing, getting right to it. The money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I do it. Oh my goodness!
Major League Baseball all season long on Fox.
Welcome back here to First and North. Lou Canellis in Chicago. Jennifer Hammond is in Detroit. Brandon Cruz in Milwaukee. Ahmad Hicks, Fox, Minneapolis. All right, Ahmad, I want to start with you. I remember a few months ago we talked about Kevin O'Connell's contract extension in Minnesota. Now they have locked up their general manager to a multi-year extension as well. Did you see this coming?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the writing was on the wall. Look what he's been able to do since he arrived here in Minnesota. You're talking about 3 competitive rebuild seasons with Kevin O'Connell, and 2 of those seasons they went to the playoffs. This was a team that was not supposed to win 14 games last year. This was a team that was not supposed to win a number of games the year prior with Kirk Cousins before he got hurt when they went to the playoffs and lost in the first round to the Giants. So they have exceeded expectations around here, and now, like I said before, they've laid the foundation to start competing, for NFC championships and the Super Bowls and whatnot. So you look at the numbers, Kwesi's done nothing but win since he's gotten here, and he didn't have the best roster. They were in one of the worst salary cap positions when he arrived here, and it was his job to fix all of that, and he's done that and some, and made this team competitive in those years, and now they have a chance to compete for it all. So he deserved a contract extension, but I'll tell you what, whoever leaks all the contract details to Adam Schefter, Tom Pelissero, all those guys, they do a phenomenal job being closed-lipped when it comes to the coaches and the general manager contracts, because you have not heard any details about Kevin O'Connell's contract or general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, but I can assume they are both paid.
Yeah, I'm sure they're both making lots of money. Ahmad, before I leave you, Kwesi, how do you think he's done with the draft so far?
Well, the first year was an absolute fumble, you know, and put it in football terminology. It was just like a pick six. It was terrible. There's only a number of people still on this team, Jalen Naylor and Brian Asamoah. Neither ones are really starters. Jalen Naylor is a number 3 wide receiver. Brian Asamoah is an inside linebacker that is a second stringer right now. But he's constantly gotten better. The second year, he hit a home run with Jordan Addison. Everyone raved about that pick. He got some other guys, Mekhi Blackman, in the second or third round, where it's like all right, these are some guys that we can kind of build on. He did a much better job this year, I think, with the very limited picks that he had, but he just went out and addressed his needs, and he didn't go for all the flashy objects. So I think when he first started, you're talking about a guy that hasn't been in the National Football League for longer than 12 plus seasons. Now he's getting that experience and whatnot, you know, when he first got here. So now that he has more years under his belt, he knows what to do when he's the man making all the decisions on draft day. I think he's just getting more comfortable, and I think you're seeing that with the draft last year in J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner, and then this year in Donovan Jackson.
All good points for sure, Ahmad, and I love the Addison pick. Bears, they started mandatory minicamp today. Ben Johnson's OTAs, and I know this doesn't surprise you, Jennifer, man, they're intense, and they expect nothing less these 3 days this week, today, tomorrow, Thursday. This is actually the final week for the veterans before training camp. Rookies will come back again next week for their own OTA. All eyes for the Bears on left tackle. First week of OTAs, at least on the Wednesday that the media were allowed to view the practice. Second-year offensive lineman Karana Magaji, he was with the ones. Then the second week, last week, rookie Ozzie Trapillo, he took all the snaps on the Wednesday practice the media was invited to witness. Trapillo, don't forget, this guy was a right tackle his final 2 seasons at Boston College, started 24 games, did see some time at left tackle at the beginning of his collegiate career. And Braxton Jones, he's the incumbent starter, but he's still on the mend from ankle surgery. We're also going to continue to watch Caleb Williams' growth this week. Williams said last week, so far so good. Johnson said so far so good last week. So Johnson's going to continue to work with Williams and his attitude. It's a big deal. And Jen, maybe you can speak more about this, but you know, he got into this whole thing about body language, and it's a big deal to him. He doesn't want the Bears to be a palms up team where they're questioning everything. And some of the players who sat out with various injuries, they're on the field at least a couple of days this week. But Kyler Gordon, TJ Edwards, and Luther Burden, the rookie second rounder, they remain out with soft tissue injuries. What do you think, Jen? What can we expect from our new head coach, Ben Johnson, here as we finish up not OTAs, but minicamp this week, and then we get ready for training camp? Intensity, intensity, intensity. Man, this guy's all about perfection. He lets nothing get by.
He's all about perfection. He doesn't let anything slip. And I do like that reference, palms up mentality, which is this, like, what me, who me, what are we doing, why are we doing this? Don't ask questions, just do it my way. But at the same time, too, there is a side to Ben Johnson that he is a great communicator. He had an incredible relationship with Jared Goff, and they bounced things off each other. And I think a lot of his creativity comes with those connections that he can make with players. But in the very first few weeks, months, years, even of his reign as the head coach, in a new position, he's got to command the respect. He has to let them understand that he knows what he's doing and that they need to follow him. And I think that's what a lot of coaches try to do when they come in. Dan Campbell is a whole different guy than he was when he came in 5 years ago. You know, the way that he has matured as a head coach over the years, you can really see it in his press conferences, on the field, the way he communicates with players. And I'm not saying that Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell are the same guy or even similar. They're very different guys. But I do think it's interesting when a new head coach comes in for them to really lay out who they are, what they expect, and the expectation for the players to understand it so that there is no gray area, so that there is no question when things come around, and do it the right way. And if you don't do it the right way the first time, we will keep doing it until you get it the right way. So for Ben Johnson, I do think that it's encouraging that he has a youngish team there. Certainly a younger quarterback is going to be a great asset for him to be able to be that mentor to Caleb. And I think they're going to have a tremendous season. I mean, I know that the fact that the NFC North, including the Chicago Bears, getting better is something that Dan Campbell is fully aware of, and he knows that his team has to be even better coming out this season as well.
Brandon, let me bring you back. No Jair Alexander, I would assume?
No, he's not at OTAs this week. He missed OTAs last week. The one thing is the players talking about him are on his side. They want him to get what's best for him, but the team obviously right now playing as if he's not there. So that means, Carrington Valentine is going to most likely be the guy taking his spot as the starter as a cornerback. And Carrington had a much better 2024, kind of showed some signs of being able to really be a solid cornerback. You also look at Nate Hobbs, who came from the Raiders. They see him as being very versatile. He could play inside, he could play outside. And Isaiah Dunn, who played with the Jets and Seahawks, is also there. So they do have some guys that have some NFL experience that could play that position. Now, Jair is a very good, if not great player when he's healthy and on the field. But the problem with him, despite some issues with his personality and maybe his attitude, his health hasn't been there. He hasn't played basically more than 50% of the game. So without him, the Packers are used to playing, but now they need to figure out what's going to happen here and make a decision moving one way or the other. And right now, it still points to the fact that Jair Alexander most likely, and it seems, won't be with the Packers, but there is room to bring him back in.
Back to Detroit, Dan Campbell with the perfect response to everyone doubting the Lions.
Give us every excuse, and we will use that, especially when the time is right. But we're not worried about. I'm not worried about that we don't have pass rush. I'm not worried about that we lost 2 coordinators. I'm not worried about the injuries. I'm not worried about the Hall of Fame game. I'm not worried about the schedule. I think it's perfect. I think it lines up perfect. I think it's going to be what's best for us with where we're at going into 2025.
Campbell's in midseason form, isn't he, John?
That was actually the lead of my story last week after the first OTA availability on Friday. I said it may be the second practice of OTAs, but Dan Campbell's already in midseason form. And if you had "I'm not worried" on your bingo card, you hit it 6 times, because Dan Campbell made it very clear that there's nothing that he is questioning about this team. And it's exactly what I would expect from Dan Campbell coming out this time of year. He's got this attitude where we're not going to make excuses for ourselves, let alone put any other undue pressure from outside on ourselves. It's all about what goes on inside that building, inside that practice facility, on that field, in the meetings. He's a guy who has full confidence in what he is doing. And like I mentioned, in year 5, he's on a roll. I mean, he is exactly where he wants to be with this team. And he knows that last season may have been, I don't want to say a little bit too easy for them, but the way that they went on the road and they played a lot of indoor games, they had this great schedule, they finished with the top seed, they didn't have to really face huge adversity. Injuries, don't get me wrong, were a huge adversity, especially to Aiden Hutchinson. But at the same time, this season, going into this year with this crazy schedule on the road against so many tough teams, second toughest in the NFL, he wants them to just line up and say, bring it. And Jared Goff, I even questioned him about it on Friday as well, and he said, you know what happens now is really important for the end of the season. But we are on a slow build into November, December, January, and hopefully February this year.
Ahmad, let me give you the last word. Sad news, man. I grew up watching this guy. This guy was unbelievable. The captain, they called him. Jim Marshall passed away at the age of 87. 20-year career. You just don't see that in the NFL anymore. 270 straight starts with the Vikings. Boy, he personified what being a Minnesota Viking is all about, didn't he?
Yeah, and I actually just saw the news before we came on set to tape this. It's just one of those guys that he's the epitome of what you want a Minnesota Viking to be. And the Vikings always show up for their legends. They are first class when it comes to inviting these guys back, parading them around the current players, and still letting that old school fan base get in touch with those players that they grew up watching, like you said, Lou. So everyone feels and mourns for him today. And I'm sure one of our producers just came in and she wants to talk to me about it, or one of our sports director Jim Rich, about this. But sad news in Vikings country today, Jim Marshall. But, his legacy will live on here, that's for sure.
That's for sure. All right, we need to take our final time out. The new Madden cover athlete has been named, but we're going to have some fun with a few alternates. Keep it right here on First and North.
The UFL is history in motion, built one story at a time. It's the gunslingers, the burners, and the cold-blooded.
A star is born!
It's a dynasty that went back to back to back. This is the UFL. The stories continue.
Welcome back. New Madden video game set to be released. Saquon Barkley. Yeah, he's on the cover doing his backwards hurdle from last season. That was a no-brainer, but how about some of the alternates? Like, look at Tyreek Stevenson here. Man, he is never going to live this down. How about Amon-Ra St. Brown and his celebration?
That's a good one.
Boy, how does anyone do that? And we all know the tush push is here to stay, but remember when the Commanders were trying to jump the snap? Look at that. Just saying, let's keep it with the Packers. Remember A.J. Brown reading the book on the sideline during the playoffs? All right. And I thought this was the best one, the compilation of all the Will Levis memes throughout the year.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ahmad? What was your favorite?
I don't know. I'm feeling left out. I didn't see any purple or Vikings up there, so I don't know if I should comment on this. But maybe Will Levis. That is, that was an atrocious season last year, so he had memes every weekend.
Jump in, Judd. What do you think? Yeah.
This one by far.
Exactly.
That one wins every time.
Brandon?
It's money. It's money.
I love the book. I mean, the book during that playoff game was fantastic, and just enjoy, sit back, and relax.
Great work, guys. Good to see all of you. For Jennifer, Brandon, Ahmad, I'm Lou Canellis. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week right here on First and North.